Good morning. Welcome back. You're still watching DayBreak on this 12th day of May 2025. In studio I have Steve Ogola, who is an advocate of the High Court. Good morning, Wakili.
Good morning, Sam.
And I have Ahmed Hashi, who's a governance analyst. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam. It's nice to see you. What a nice morning it is.
Good to see you. We're still waiting for Njeri Maina, who's the woman representative for Kirinyaga County, and Senator Eddie Okech, Senator of Migori County. They'll be here shortly. This morning, we're waking up to the news of RSF's tragic mission, which is the story that we find on the front page of the Standard. They are talking of a Kenyan pilot who was killed in an attack by the Sudanese army at an airstrip controlled by the rebel Rapid Support Forces, RSF, in northern Sudan. The pilot was reportedly on a covert mission supplying personnel and military hardware to the RSF, a revelation that risks tarnishing Kenya's image. And the details are inside the paper on page 4 of the Standard, where you'll find the image of the man. The aircraft flown by George Nyamodi was downed in the Darfur region and burned to ashes. State silent after Kenyan pilot killed, plane wrecked in Sudan's RSF mission is the story that you'll find there. And you also find a quotation of Rigathi Gachagua when he was deputy president, or they recently saying that I welcomed Hemedit and delivered him to the president. There was nothing about Kenya. They were discussing business about gold and other things. Of course, he spoke not long ago in the name of revelation since leaving office. On the front page of the Daily Nation, Ruto stumbles from one crisis to another. They have listed all those situations that have been, 11 of them, from budget showdown in opposition to new taxes, uproar over IEBC nominees, a row with governors on county cash, so many more, including fallout of MP Were's murder and Gen Z killings. Then public schools demand fat bribes for new learners. And if you go to inside the paper, pages 4 and 5, Ahmed, your mic is on. Pages 4 and 5, he's talking to Jeremiah, who has just joined us. Again, the details on page 4 is the head of state has weathered many storms since rising to power in September 2022, be it from the courts, the Gen Z, civil society, political front, and even within his Kenya Kwanza administration. Then you'll find that we demand immediate release of the full recruitment report. This is Elections Observation Group about what has just happened to the IEBC recruitment, which is where I want us to start, because last week the president sent a list of 7 names to the National Assembly, and the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee has been instructed by the Speaker of the National Assembly to go ahead and convene to vet the names of chairperson of IEBC nominee, that is Erastus Edung Ethekon, and there are 6 members who have been nominated to the commission. Let's begin there, but also to welcome Senator Eddie Okech from Migori County and Njeri Maina, Member of Parliament for Kirinyaga County. Good morning, both of you. Great. Well, Wakili Ogola, let's begin with you. Your assessment of the recruitment process with this outcome that you now have names that will be processed by Parliament.
Thank you, Sam. Just first of all, to congratulate the selection panel for a job well done. It may not reflect the kind of preferences we had, because, you know, we looked at the selection, we looked at the shortlisted candidates. We probably had our own preferred candidates as Kenyans, but the most important thing, Sam, to note is that we as Kenyans have had to learn to trust officers that are mandated to perform public functions. It cannot lie that every time public and state officers perform duties assigned to them by operation of law, that our knee-jerk reaction is to bastardize the outcome of those processes for political or any other expediency. So I see no reason for faulting the names that have been sent the president for nomination, for appointment, and I can only hope that they understand IEBC's pressing challenges at the moment, which is to give a way forward on delimitation of boundaries. Are we going to do delimitation of boundaries, yes or no? It's a pressing concern.
Right.
The pending by-elections, do we have the time and the resources to conduct those by-elections? Because by operation of law, by-elections must be conducted within 90 days, right?
Yeah.
And what caused the delay was the absence of commissioners. So that's an in-tray. There is the question also of the general induction into the office into that office. How long do they need to be inducted? I know IEBC has said previously they need 60 days to give the new commissioners the necessary orientation to be able to settle in.
Right.
Then there are the pressing administrative issues, the directorates, the personnel, and so on and so forth. So there's a whole in-tray. We can only hope that vetting process would move with speed so that this new commission can get going.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And of course, we'll get to know these nominees more. We understand that Ethekon is an advocate of about 20 years. He is 48 years old and, of course, has worked with the Turkana County government as county attorney. And he spoke during the vetting exercise, and he told the vetting team that there's a question of trust that needs to be addressed within the commission, but also in the country watch.
And so I think there's a big gap, deficit in terms of us as Kenyans trusting our institutions to deliver free, fair, transparent, verifiable elections. So that lack of confidence is in our institutions and our processes is what we need to address. And where we have disagreements, we should be able actually to record, to air those disagreements, say, I disagree with this, but it has to be recorded.
All right. He was, of course, defending his candidature, and he appears to have convinced the team. There's been voices that are coming out from the political class. But Ahmed, what do you make of the process, but also the concerns that the political class is raising?
I don't trust the Electoral Commission. I don't trust any Electoral Commission. And the reason I don't do that is because I was a witness to 2-3 electoral commissions that plunged this country into violence, and we nearly lost our country. And I know that whatever government is in place, they have to put their hand in the Electoral Commission because the elections are not won in Kenya in a clean, fair, and credible election in this country. It is always won at the Electoral Commission. It is never won on the ground. And it's a disaster for this country. I've always advocated for something called Elections Kenya, like a government department that runs the elections in this country. I mean, as Africans, what is so big about us taking a piece of paper and putting it in a ballot box? Countries with larger populations than us spend a fraction. A
government department running the elections?
Yes, it's done in Canada. It's Elections Canada.
You think that would work?
I think it's better than getting all these political appointees because, you know, the most important thing about an electoral commission is the character of the commissioners and of the chairman. Every IEBC chairman has died a year after he's called an election. Remember Kivuda, he passed along. The last one passed along just the other day. This electoral commission is a...
What is the connection? The
politicians, the head of state, the opposition, all the groups will put their hands into this. These people are beholden to political parties. And most of them have characters that we don't know about because once you're the referee for a period of about a week where you're effectively the president, where you've called that this is the man who's going to win the elections, that gives you a tremendous amount of moral weight. A lot of, you have the country at the palm of your hands. And what have we done in the history of this country as far as electoral commissions are concerned? Every day we go to court. There is not a time when an electoral commission has called an election and the winner has congratulated the opposition, or the opposition has congratulated the winner, and we go home and wait for these guys to form a government and move ahead. It's never happened. There's always a problem with the electoral commission. So in many countries there are systems in which elections are run by departments of technocrats who just do their job, and the budget, if you look at the budget of the IEBC, it's just madness. I mean, it's countries that are industrialized run elections.
So how much do you feel that the election costs?
Well, the lawyer here will tell you that the budget for this for this election runs into the billions and billions of shillings. The kind of money that they want is crazy. Look, on the one side, I also have to say that democracy is also an expensive thing. To get the will of the people, the government has to spend money. But what is the most important thing about this electoral commission that we want is integrity and the character of these commissioners and their ability to run a free and fair and credible election. And that is what Kenyans expect, particularly because there are cohorts who are going to come into the Gen Zs, you know, people who turn 18 in 2027, and there is 8 million people who did not vote last time? Was it 10? 8 million people did not vote. This time, every Kenyan citizen is going to the ballot box because people feel strongly about the politics of this country this time.
Oh, all right. You've said very controversial things there.
Have to correct.
Sorry, just note it down because I want us to listen to what Kalonzo Musyoka has been saying, and the Speaker of the National Assembly has responded to him of concerns they have.
Kwa hivyo hiyo IEBC maneno, we are still insisting on not only inclusivity, but consultation and concurrence.
That is Kalonzo Musyoka, but Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, has been speaking at the same time, and he's telling Kalonzo Musyoka that if you have any concerns, take them to the Justice Legal Affairs Committee. It will be processed at that place. And Jeremiah, so what is the big issue here? Because, yes, there was something called National Dialogue Committee report that said that Raila Odinga and William Ruto should consult before taking the names to Parliament. But Raila Odinga is not Kalonzo Musyoka.
I sat in the committee that undertook disciplinary proceedings for the infamous Cherera 4. And I do think that we set the bar too low, but it seems even low is not good enough for us. And it goes without saying that the process was flawed. And we do recall complaints about persons that had not been gazetted, names being snicked. We have seen information about the nominees' links to particular individuals in government. And it is something that seems to be the norm. Because if you do recall correctly, the Cherera 4 had a side, Chebukati and his team had a side. And it's quite unfortunate because at the end of the day, I do believe as a young leader that we only have one country. And if we will see an already perhaps preempted decision in terms of how Kenyans will vote in 2027, the results that will be announced, we are setting up this country for chaos. And people feel very strongly about the current government. We do recall the 2024 finance bill protests, young Kenyans who came on the streets, the situation of the economy. And it is a fact that we must all agree on, that this is the situation as it is. So where do we go from here? If we see political leaders like Kalonzo Musyoka, Rigathi Gachagua, and the like-minded leaders complaining already, we are setting up this country for a situation that would be very unfortunate. So where do we go from here? Do we need to have another discussion? Do we need to sit at the table and see which way we will take from here? We had the NADCO report. We are now implementing part of the agreement that came out of the NADCO report. Should we make sure that everyone is involved in this? Every political leader who would say perhaps has...
How would they be involved? Because the selection panel has done its work. That selection panel was constituted after a law passed by Parliament.
No, they did not address the concerns that were raised in terms of the process of ensuring that we have these names that are being brought to Parliament.
Sorry.
To JLAC.
What exactly?
No, I'm saying, you do recall the issues raised on the procedure and names that had been sneaked in, that had not been gazetted.
Which is a fact.
That issue was not addressed, Sam. So from the very onset, we are beginning to culminate or to build up to a situation where an outcome would be announced, there'd be disagreements, and the parties would be justified to disagree because they would say, look, you sneaked in candidates that had not been gazetted.
You're talking about the additional names?
Yes, the additional names, yes. And that concern, when it was raised at the onset, was not addressed. So then we are having a situation where there's a deficiency of trust. And that is a fact that every election, Kenyans have a trust issue
with the Electoral Commission.
Okay. Senator Okech, should that be a deal breaker? Because you find that out of those additional names, you have Hassan Nur Hassan coming off as one of the nominees. What is this?
Thank you, Sam, and good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to colleagues.
Good morning.
Nigeria and fellow panelists here. I think there are two issues that have been brought here that are very, very, very strong that I think I must comment on. One is the association of people in this list that the Honorable Nigeria just talked about and associated with some people in power. Today, Sam, if Ahmed was to believe in his country, and then this process was an open process and people invited to apply, I think he's qualified, he's a governance expert. If you believe in his country, because you know what you don't want to change, you're choosing not to change. So if you believe that this IEBC thing is rotten and this is the problem of the country, he could have applied. But if he had applied and Ahmed had been selected or actually nominated by the president in this particular list, do you think somebody somewhere would not say that Ahmed is not related to or associated with one or two politicians? If Steve was to be elected and you know, be nominated in this same list, would indeed be the fact that Steve, because he comes from Nyanza, and Ahmed one time was a close ally of Raila Odinga, would somebody say that they're associated? We are all Kenyans, and at one point, you will be associated with somebody. Unless you want a commission that comes from Uganda or Tanzania, you want some Tanzanians or Ugandans to apply for our commission, let us not profile Kenyans on the basis of...
But is perception important? Because I've seen...
It is important, and I'm coming to that. I'm
still with you, Honorable Senator.
Yes.
Because I've seen some people saying that the nominee for chairperson has been a county attorney in Turkana, once worked with Governor Nanok. Governor Nanok is an employee of President William Ruto. Should that bother the country?
He has also worked for the UNDP. Should that bother the country?
Yes.
That has worked for UNDP?
Should.
I mean, everybody has worked from somewhere. I think the issue here is the qualification of the people here. And I think that the right question that is being asked is whether the process was without flaw. And I think that is something that will bring confidence if the panel, because there's a requirement...
The additional names to the shortlist?
That's where I was going. If the panel, the requirement of the panel is that once the panel finishes this process, then they must give an exit report. That exit report is not only given to the president, it should be given to the public. And I think that it is important that the panel makes sure that the public has confidence by being able to give out that report. Because that public trust is important. And the government is struggling with that trust. The opposition is struggling with that trust. The public right now, and this is not me, this is TIFA. TIFA research that came out that there is about 55% of the Kenyan public that do not have confidence of the process. The only way you sanitize that lack of confidence is two. One is by the panel being able to showcase to Kenyans what they did through what the law requires, is the exit report. And the second thing is after confirmation of these individuals, how then they show up on the stage of leadership and making sure that their qualification, their experiences and their merit and the agencies that they find in the office that they're now put in, including issues around running the elections as well as preparing for the next elections, are done in a proper manner.
All right.
That's the only way you restore confidence.
Wakili Ogola, I know you want to respond to a few issues, but as you do that, is there a deal breaker that you have additional names to the shortlist?
No, that's a pressing concern, I must admit.
Yeah.
And I would hope that the selection panel provides a reasonable explanation as to why, but it's not fatal. Sam, it's not fatal because the applications were in the database. Once we find there's a reasonable explanation, the matter will rest there. But if there is doubt, the matter can still be litigated, and the judicial forum is a neutral forum that is capable of interrogating the propriety of those names that were added last year. Now, there's the question, permit me to respond to Ahmed, yeah?
Yeah.
There's the question of perception versus performance. We can settle on the performance, then debate the perception. Insofar as IEBC is concerned, the performance of IEBC is spectacular. I say so as a litigation lawyer who litigates on election cases. In 2017, I represented Governor Malombe at the Court of Appeal when he challenged the gubernatorial results of the then Governor Charity Kaluki-Ngilu. I also participated in 2022 general election, presidential election, and I do conversations on election reform, generally within the Law Society of Kenya, as a trainer. Now, if you audit judgments flowing from the Supreme Court, particularly in respect of the presidential election, other than 2017, when the Supreme Court said IEBC was not able to explain why it did not have contingency plans for transmission of results in some constituencies, because the failure of technology in transmission of results is what caused the nullification of those results. The finding of the Supreme Court in respect of all the other elections upholds IEBC's performance. And if you look at the petitions that are challenged, the election petitions in court, I think less than 1% succeed. So on performance alone, IEBC does a great job. If you look at communication and stakeholder engagement, I think they do well and so on and so forth. But on perception, I would agree there's a problem. The perception problem is not an internal problem, or is not a problem internal to IEBC. It is a problem external to the Commission, created by people who demand trust in the Commission, but surprisingly also puncture that trust. Now, we sought an independent commission, and I have masters in governance. At least I'm recognized that. And I'm a continuing PhD student in governance. So, as a practitioner, and as a someone who is expert, as an expert, having been formally trained, and also as an expert by practice, at least my voice should have some meaning. Now, when we're debating the new constitution, how we should restructure IEBC, we agreed as Kenyans that in the order and practice of governance, it is better and safer that the electoral management body be insulated from political interference, not inoculated with politics. That is why Article 88 of the Constitution demands an independent electoral and boundaries commission, appointed not through political consensus, but through an independent process managed by a selection panel.
Do you find the selection panel independent?
Look, I'm talking about the level of conceptualization of the commission, right? So if you want to reopen that conceptualization framework of how commissioners how we feed people into the commission, then we'd have to go back the referendum. And I like that debate that takes us the referendum. But meanwhile, let us recognize that the present architectural design is the product of consensus of Kenyans who went to the referendum and decided it is safer and better that IEBC be independent, at least at the level of conceptualization and appointment. Now, whether those individual commissioners are independent or not is a matter that is partly reserved for them and partly for the public. Partly reserved for them because we saw what Cherarafo did. If you are appointed through a process that is transparent a process that is insulated from politics, and you are expected to work independently. But then you sabotage the commission from within. Sam, that is not a problem with the law.
That's what I'm asking. With the current process, you know how the selection panel was nominated?
Yes.
Do you find that independent, or it doesn't have to be?
This is what the High Court will tell you.
Yeah.
The question of the appointment of the selection panel, it's a question of law.
Yeah.
The IEBC Act provides in the schedule the manner in which the selection panel is to be appointed, Sam. And if you have a problem with that law, the process leading up to that appointment, why didn't you challenge that law first, when there was still time? Because we can put pontificate.
That's fine.
So I have no problem with the law. That's number one.
Yes, it is the law. And of course, you recall that initially there was a law that the Azimio team did not feel comfortable with.
Correct.
It was... that
was Orengo and Kirayuti in 2016.
No. Just before this, in 2023.
Yes.
In 2022, there's a law that was passed by Parliament, and it was challenged by Azimio. That's why we have an amendment that was pursued after the NADCO report. So what I'm asking is, because you have political parties, majority and minority represented in the selection panel, does that help in making sure that you have an independent commission at the outcome?
Yes, the short answer is yes, because it cures the problem of perception of inclusion, including many voices in the selection process. But look, I am not hearing anyone questioning the law that leads up to the nomination of people to sit in the selection panel. That question, we cannot debate it now, Sam. That's number one.
All right.
Yes. Importantly,
that's fine. I need us to take a short break.
Yeah.
So can we split?
Just a quick
30 seconds.
The argument is a naturalistic fallacy argument, which proposes meta-ethics, that if it's going through a process, then there is a moral good involved. And I argue that the Electoral Commission has a historical answer to it. It has been politicized from day one. The public politicized it, of course, because of our problems of character, our problems of ethics, and the history of what the Electoral Commission has done. And today, you could see that the same problems are cropping up. The issue is that the people of this country simply want an electoral commission that has gone through a process. Nobody's saying the legal process should be absconded from, but to use the legal argument as a meta-ethic argument is to defeat the purpose of the outcomes of the electoral commission, as my learned friend here on the right has been speaking about. At the end, when the announcements are made and then there's divisions in the electoral commission, then we have problems with the outcome. And Senator, my honorable senator from Migori has said that there's an exit report, but there should be an uptake report, and we're waiting for the JPAC. What's it called? JLAC.
Yeah.
To actually bring more information and debate on this issue, so that we can even say more things in the future. But right now, the government side, you could see the language of the government on the right side of the panel, which is trying to legitimate the whole process before the National Assembly even says that it's an okay panel. Let this opposition and the government in the National Assembly give direction to the government of this, including Mr. The senator here, on the debate. We want a debate on this thing and see if it's legitimate or if it's not. That's the important thing.
Wow, government side. Now,
and Sam, independence is a fallacy. My senior here will tell you about independence and, the spirit of the Constitution in terms of having institutions that are independent. But we do know that is a fallacy in the strict sense of it. And I do believe that it is important we have this conversation, because the outcome of the 2027 elections might have an aftermath that we would not want to have as a country. And because Kenya belongs to all of us, we can speak in legalese about, the procedure and what the High Court says and all that. But the reality of it, we will be the ones to face the reality of that.
Now, I was just wondering.
I'm not happy at all.
Sorry, just hold on. I was just wondering, because these nominees will be taken to the Justice Legal Affairs Committee and eventually National Assembly plenary. Part of the vetting law that Parliament will use, you have to look at the process used to arrive at the nominees. What can Parliament do if indeed there's a challenge that there are additional names that are arrived at during the shortlisting?
So you're asking me what the same parliament that voted for the 2024 finance bill will do. I mean, do you expect any different answer from the same? I do remember we had a conversation with you around, I think, 3 weeks ago, in terms of, in regard to the CS nominees. And I told you that the answer is already there. And at that point, they had not been, I think they'd just gone through vetting, and we were waiting for the outcome. And the answer, you know, we do have the answer, Sam. Let us not pretend and belabor and sit here and lie to the Kenyan people that there will be any difference in terms of recommendations from Parliament. JLAC, when it tables its report on the floor of the National Assembly, I mean, really.
Okay.
We do not have any hope in the 13th Parliament that there's anything that they will do that will be averse to what the executive wants, because we do know that they have been beholden by the executive.
All right.
That's a fact.
I need to take a short break. When we come back, we'll also be diving into the conversation, sorry, Senator, of what transpired at the Court of Appeal last week. They gave a judgment to the indication that Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu, in constituting the bench that determined some of the matters of impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua, did so, but that decision did not really comply with the Constitution, because she failed to give reasons why the Chief Justice was not able to make that empanelment. We'll talk about that after the break. Stay tuned.